In 1930, a small shop owner in Chicago opened his morning newspaper to some alarming news. Tariffs, taxes on imports, were rising dramatically. Politicians promised prosperity, safety for American jobs, and protection from foreign competition. Newspapers proclaimed it a victory for the working class. The reality? It was the beginning of the Great Depression, the worst economic collapse in American history. And yet, for a select few, it became the greatest financial opportunity of their lifetimes. Because wealth isn't just made in times of prosperity. It's made in times of chaos. Today, nearly a century later, that same small shop owner, now running a boutique in Brooklyn, a cafe in Kansas City, or a hardware store in Seattle, finds themselves staring at similar headlines. Tariffs, again, are at the center stage of American economic policy, championed by politicians as essential tools to protect workers, boost American manufacturing, and make the nation richer. But the echoes from 1930 are hard to ignore. Tariffs, they say. The president announces new tariffs. Economists warn about tariffs. Politicians debate tariffs. Headlines scream about tariffs.
President Donald Trump is shaking up global trade again with his latest tariffs.
Tariff.
His latest tariffs on steel and aluminum.
Everyone talks about tariffs, yet almost nobody stops to ask, who truly benefits? History teaches us a harsh lesson. Tariffs often don't enrich the workers they promise to protect. Instead, prices rise, workers lose jobs, and trade wars erupt, hurting ordinary Americans while corporations and the wealthiest individuals quietly grow richer. This isn't theory, it's historical fact. During the Great Depression, protectionism deepened economic despair, yet simultaneously laid the groundwork for enormous wealth to flow upward. So here we are again, repeating an economic strategy we've tried and failed at before. But if tariffs don't make everyday workers richer, who exactly stands to benefit? And are we doomed to repeat history's harsh lessons? Or can understanding the past finally offer us a chance to get things right? Because right now, history isn't just repeating itself, it's practically shouting at us to pay attention. Tariffs have been around for as long as nations have traded, always sold as a kind of economic armour, a shield to protect jobs, fortify industries, and keep wealth from slipping across borders. Politicians rely on them because they're easy to explain, easy to defend, and easy to rally behind. But history tells a different story. In the late 1920s, America stood on the edge of uncertainty. The country had just emerged from a decade of breakneck expansion, but the cracks were starting to show. Stock markets wavered, factory orders slowed, confidence in the unstoppable growth of American industry was fading. The economy wasn't in freefall yet, but fear was creeping in. Washington's solution came in 1930 with the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act. It was a simple idea: raise taxes on more than 20,000 imported goods, steel, machinery, clothing, food, make foreign products more expensive, and force the country to buy American. On paper, it would protect jobs, secure industries, and stabilize the economy. In reality, it did the opposite. Trading partners retaliated. Countries that had once been reliable buyers of American goods shut their doors. Within 4 years, US imports had collapsed by 66%, exports by 61%. Factories didn't just slow down, they shut down. Unemployment soared. Instead of protecting the economy, tariffs had cut America off from the world at the worst possible moment, turning a financial downturn into the worst economic collapse in modern history, the Great Depression. Nearly 100 years later, the playbook looks eerily familiar. The Trump administration, like those before it, has embraced tariffs as a tool for economic resurgence, imposing sweeping taxes on steel, aluminum, and Chinese imports. The promise? To revive American manufacturing, reclaim jobs, and restore economic strength. But history doesn't just whisper warnings, it shouts them. Already, industries are feeling the strain. The cost of raw materials is rising, construction firms are delaying projects, and auto manufacturers are scrambling to adjust. Even something as simple as a soda can is more expensive to produce. The policies that were meant to shield American workers are starting to weigh them down instead. And yet, while small businesses and middle-class consumers wrestle with higher prices, others have learned how to turn economic turbulence into an opportunity. Because history has shown us something else. When tariffs hit, not everyone loses. The last time America tried this, it ended with a financial collapse that defined an entire generation. But for a select few, it also created one of the greatest wealth-building opportunities of the century. So the question isn't just whether tariffs will work. It's who already knows how to use them to their advantage. A single decision in economics can trigger a chain reaction, one that doesn't just shift prices, but reshapes entire industries, ripples through global markets, and alters the way people live. And in the case of modern tariffs, that moment came with the stroke of a pen. In 2018, the Trump administration signed off on a sweeping wave of tariffs under Section 232 and Section 301, citing national security risks and unfair trade practices. The targets? 25% tariffs on steel, 10% on aluminum, billions in levies on Chinese imports. The goal was clear: bring jobs back, reignite American manufacturing, and cut dependence on foreign economies. A political rallying cry for self-reliance. But economies don't operate in isolation, and trade policies don't come without consequences. Fast forward to today, and tariffs aren't just a tool of trade policy anymore. They've become a cornerstone of the American economy. But for some industries, they aren't just policy shifts, they're profit guarantees. The US has doubled down, expanding tariffs into industries far beyond steel and aluminum, from semiconductors to solar panels, agriculture to electronics. Protectionism, once a political dividing line, has now become one of the few economic strategies embraced across party lines. And the impact? It hits like shockwaves. Construction firms that once relied on affordable steel now face surging material costs. A $1,200 increase per ton of imported steel may seem small, but when multiplied across millions of tons used in construction, it translates to billions in added costs, stalling projects and pushing prices higher. Auto manufacturers, once wary of government intervention, now find themselves trapped in a delicate balancing act. Ford, GM, and Tesla must choose: absorb the extra costs or push the burden onto consumers. And so the price of a new car, once a manageable expense, edges further out of reach for millions. Even the food industry isn't immune. Tariffs on aluminum drive up the cost of soda cans. Dairy farmers, once thriving on exports, now watch as Canada and Mexico retaliate with tariffs of their own. Grocery prices creep upward. Families stretch their budgets further. But here's where history gets predictable. Because when industries struggle, markets shift, and policies create turbulence, there are always those who know how to turn crisis into profit. For domestic steel producers, these tariffs are a golden ticket. With foreign competition priced out, they can raise costs, dominate supply chains, and cement their position in the market. Lobbying firms work behind the scenes, influencing which industries win exemptions, guiding legislation to serve corporate interests rather than consumers. And multinational corporations, especially those with global flexibility, adapt by simply moving production elsewhere, sidestepping the very tariffs that were meant to contain them. Because in economics, as in history, policies don't just shape markets, they decide who gets rich. So as tariffs ripple through industries, inflating costs and stretching wallets, the real question isn't whether these policies will strengthen the economy. It's who knew this was coming and positioned themselves to profit from it. Tariffs are one of those policies that sound almost too simple to fail. Tax imported goods, protect domestic industries, strengthen the economy. Politicians love them because they're easy to sell. A patriotic shield against foreign competition, a promise of security for American workers. But history has a habit of proving them wrong. Tariffs don't work in isolation. They set off chain reactions, not just shifting industries, but deciding who struggles and who comes out ahead. Prices rise, not just for imported goods, but for everything connected to them. A 10% tariff on aluminum doesn't just hit manufacturers overseas. It turns a simple soda can, once a 50-cent material cost, into a pricier production expense for every company that relies on them. Scale that up to airplane frames, skyscrapers, and car factories. And suddenly, the impact isn't just on metal, it's on entire industries. A 25% tax on imported steel isn't just a tax on foreign competitors. It squeezes American construction, slows housing projects, and makes home ownership even further out of reach. While workers and businesses scramble to adjust, some see a different opportunity. Take President Donald Trump. In early 2025, just days before his second inauguration, a cryptocurrency called Trump Coin launched. Within hours, its value exploded past $5 billion, fueled by speculation that Trump-affiliated wallets controlled a significant share of the supply. Almost immediately, theories spread. Tariffs, inflation, and economic volatility could actually boost the value of assets like Trump Coin, potentially turning its biggest holders into billionaires. And yet, for all the controversy, no one seemed particularly shocked, because tariffs, like most economic policies, aren't about fairness, they're about positioning. And Trump isn't the only one who knows how to play both sides. The world's richest man, Elon Musk, built his empire on electric cars and private spaceflight, industries that should have been among the biggest casualties of tariffs. Tesla sources materials from across the globe. By all logic, rising import costs should hurt the company's bottom line. And yet, Tesla's stock surged in response to the latest round of tariffs. Why? Because Musk plays a longer game. While legacy automakers struggle with rising costs, Tesla has aggressively expanded US manufacturing in recent years. Where other companies feel the squeeze, Musk has positioned Tesla to thrive. By shifting supply chains early, Tesla insulated itself just enough, letting competitors take the hit while Tesla emerges stronger. But if there's anyone who understands how to make money during economic chaos, it's Warren Buffett. Buffett follows one rule: sit on cash while the market is booming and buy when everyone else is panicking. It's a strategy that has made him one of the wealthiest investors in history. And right now, as tariffs disrupt global supply chains and send shockwaves through industries, Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway is sitting on over $300 billion in cash, waiting, watching, timing the next move. He's done this before. In 2008, during the financial crisis, he bought into distressed companies as markets collapsed. In 2020, during the pandemic crash, he did the same thing again. And now, tariffs and economic uncertainty are creating another opening. Because in the end, tariffs don't hit everyone the same way. For most people, they mean higher prices, thinner margins, and harder decisions. But for those who understand how to turn economic policy into profit, tariffs aren't just taxes on imports. They're declarations. A country imposing tariffs isn't just adjusting its economy, it's choosing sides, drawing lines, picking winners and losers. And the world always responds. When the US slapped tariffs on steel and aluminum, Canada retaliated instantly. What had once been a seamless supply chain between two of the closest trading partners in the world fractured overnight. Industries built on decades of cooperation found themselves caught in a political crossfire. Business leaders, who had spent years optimizing for efficiency, were suddenly navigating a battlefield shaped by forces far beyond their control. Across the Atlantic, Europe wasn't about to stand still. The EU fired back with billions in counter-tariffs, punishing American industries that had nothing to do with the original dispute. Not because they wanted to, but because not retaliating was worse. Global trade isn't about fairness, it's about leverage, and no one can afford to take a hit without hitting back. But this time, the stakes are different. This isn't just another trade war, it's happening at a moment when the world is already teetering. Supply chains, once invisible and seamless, are now fragile. Factories that once shipped goods across oceans in days now face month-long delays. And the markets? They react violently. Every new tariff announcement triggers swings in the Dow, the Nasdaq, the S&P 500. Volatility that seasoned investors know how to turn into an advantage. Energy markets, destabilized by war, have thrown entire economies into uncertainty. And then there's the elephant in the room, the slow-burning economic decoupling of the US and China. A conflict not fought with soldiers, but with policy, production lines, and financial influence. For decades, globalization wasn't just a theory. It was the plan. The belief that the more countries relied on each other, the safer, richer, and more stable the world would become. That belief is gone. Nations aren't building a global economy anymore. They're building fortresses. China is moving to sever its reliance on the US altogether. The European Union is scrambling to become self-sufficient. And America? The same country that once championed free trade is rewriting its economy for a world where cooperation isn't an advantage. It's a risk. This is no longer about trade policy, it's something far bigger. The world isn't deglobalizing peacefully, it's fracturing, unpredictably, chaotically. And in a world already stretched to its limits, instability is no longer just an economic consequence, it's a geopolitical threat. The world doesn't shift overnight. It happens piece by piece, moment by moment, decision by decision, until one day you look up and everything is different. Not long ago, globalization felt inevitable. Companies stretched their supply chains across continents. Nations depended on each other for survival. A single, interconnected system, efficient, stable, predictable. But stability is fragile. It started with tariffs, small, calculated moves that seemed like temporary adjustments. Then supply chains cracked, trade deals unraveled, economic alliances turned into geopolitical chess matches. And before anyone fully grasped what was happening, the world had changed. This isn't just a trade dispute, it's a full-scale restructuring of global power. When the US imposes tariffs on China, China doesn't just retaliate, it builds a future without the US. When the European Union pulls back from American markets, it isn't just a policy shift, it's a declaration of independence. What comes next isn't a return to normal. It's a world divided, not just by borders, but by economies, by supply chains, by entire systems of production and influence. Globalization isn't ending, it's fracturing. And when it finally settles, what comes next will be something entirely different. History doesn't repeat itself. Not exactly. The Great Depression isn't happening again, but the forces that led to it, the policies, the miscalculations, the belief that economic barriers can be built without consequence, those forces are here. Tariffs were supposed to protect jobs. Prices went up. They were supposed to strengthen industries. Trade collapsed. They were supposed to shield economies. Instead, they reshaped the world. And now, we're watching that reshaping happen again. Not as a theory, not as a distant possibility, but in real time. And right now, the real question isn't just who will survive this shift. It's who will see the opportunity before everyone else. During the Great Depression, when businesses collapsed and fortunes vanished, a handful of investors, those who understood the shift before everyone else, became richer than ever. Warren Buffett built his empire on moments like these. When markets panicked, he stayed patient. When industries fell apart, he bought in. When everyone else focused on the crisis, he focused on what came next. Because every financial upheaval doesn't just cause chaos. It resets the playing field. The real question isn't whether protectionism will work. It's who will position themselves on the right side of it. The world we knew, the one built on shared markets, open trade, global supply chains, that world isn't coming back. What replaces it? That's still being written. Because history shows that these moments don't just change the world, they create wealth. And for those paying attention, this might just be the best chance to get rich in 2025. If you've made it this far, well then, thank you. We use hours upon hours producing these videos, and all that hard work is all worth it because of you. So if you'd like us to continue making more of these videos, please don't forget to comment or leave a like, so we know what we can improve, what you thought, or even just if you like what we are doing. If you want to stay up to date with our latest uploads, don't forget to subscribe.